How do you get 12 months of results in 12 weeks? If you listen to the audio from the other day, you realize that there's a pattern in nature, a pattern in life, a pattern that we all experience, where we will make progress in bursts. And look back in your life and think about that. Like, think about the Industrial Revolution, like 1900 till now. In just a few decades, everything changed. Look at the advent of the internet or the cell phone. It's changed the entire world. But also look at science. When we discovered DNA, and then where we are now, what we're doing with DNA, what we're doing with artificial intelligence. But also, personally, in your life, there are times where you have made massive progress in what seemed like record time, because it was. This is a natural pattern. There's an ebb and flow to life. There is a moment where you're doing these little things all the time. It doesn't seem like it's doing anything, so a lot of people quit, so they don't get that burst. So we are going to do those little things. We're going to make them part of your life. We're going to automate them through mental conditioning and daily action. But the first step is the North Star process. Before there was GPS and it was dark, where you're stranded on a boat and you didn't know which direction to go, what'd you do? You looked up. You found Polaris, the North Star. And it was your guiding light to know what direction was home, how to get to where you want to be. But if you don't know where home is, if you don't know what victory looks like, if you don't have a vision and a goal, how do you know which way to go? The answer is simple. You don't. So when someone asks me a question, like, I'll get so many messages and they'll just ask me like, hey, I want to do this. How do I do this? And I don't have any information. Like, what's your goal? Let's get clear on it. Usually they have too many goals, or they're just not clear on what they want to achieve. And the answer changes based off that person's goal. Like, if someone wants to run a marathon and gain muscle and increase their bench press and lose 20 pounds of fat, that's not going to work. Those are different protocols. Now, there are similarities, but you can make progress in all those, but not very much. You need to say, hey, for this time, this is my goal. And so during this next 12 weeks, I would say, let's look at the habits and let's make them part of your life so it's automated. Because to get to where you want to be, to transform your body and to fall in love with the process requires an immense amount of work, a lot of energy. I'm not going to lie. If you do it the way I instruct you upon, it's not going to be that hard because you're putting yourself in state. You have a clear vision that's pulling you forward. It's not like you don't have to push. You don't have to use sheer will. It doesn't require as much energy when you take the time to do the North Star, have something that you're moving towards, and you can tell when you're making progress. When you're not in progress, you know which way you got to go. It's not like, what do? I don't know what's going wrong. That never happens. One, you have me, and two, you know where you're heading. It sounds so simple that people take it for granted. So what we're going to do in this audio is I'm going to walk you through the North Star. It's not some big complicated thing. It's fun. It's a game. But you got to put yourself in that state. You want to put yourself in a state of unlimited possibility. What if anything was truly possible? Because in reality, we do things every year. Humans do. Every decade, every century. Look what was possible 100 years ago. And look what's possible now. We didn't even go to space 100 years ago. We barely had cars. The ones we had were pretty crappy. So think about what's possible. And what's possible when you put your energy into it. You get a clear vision, and what do? You pour yourself into it. And then you cultivate these habits. And then you get momentum. And then you have this burst. Right when you think it's not working, that's when it starts. That's when it begins. So let's do it. The North Star process is something that is best done for quality. And this is a concept, a principle that applies to the entire program and to life itself. It is ferocity. It is clarity of vision and purpose. And ferocity, ferocious focus, concentration. Putting yourself in absolute presence, no distractions. People like to say they multitask. No, you can't focus. That's your problem. You can't focus. You don't feel comfortable focusing on one thing. That's what that usually is. I can't say it every time, but most people, they're not trained to focus. In martial arts, you learn to concentrate. You literally focus on one thing, just standing there. I remember being a kid staring at this freaking candle forever. And I didn't know why I was doing it. And so because I didn't know why, I wasn't very good at it. Once I understood it much later in life, now I do it joyfully because I understand what it's trained something that the world is losing. Concentration, focus. Focus is a superpower. You're going to hear this again and again. But that is what we need. We need this clarity. We need this focus. And we need to be consistent and relentless in our actions. And you don't need to do a million different things. But you need to do a few things millions of times because you got to do this for the rest of your life. So if you don't have the mindset, it's not sustainable. So let's do this. You might want to put some music on in the background, whatever excites you, but put yourself in state. Take a deep breath, stand tall. Get a pen and paper. It's better if you can stand like on a counter or something. Not stand on the counter, but stand right standing up if you can. Keep that head high, but stand the way you want to look. Take a big deep breath. Put a smile on your face. Just say yes. And a good thing to say is something awesome's about to happen. I don't know what it is yet, but it's about to happen. Just that positive expectation. Now, the first question. We must create a vision for much further down the road. When we're like 100, 120. I shared with many of you a study that was published a couple years ago in Scientific American. Now that we mapped the human genome, scientists looked at it and said, hey, if you live a healthy lifestyle, do these little things each day, how long can this body last? And on the low end, 120 years of age, and on the higher end, 150 years of age. Wrap your head around that. And it makes sense why the average life expectancy is around 80 right now. And it keeps growing. It's because we were doing so many things wrong, not getting enough nutrients, not training, not strengthening the body, not sleeping, alcohol, drugs, medication. And still, 8 decades it lasts. But there's a lot more. But we got to get that vision. We have a lot of limiting beliefs about age. So decide. Maybe 100 is too old for you and you just can't grasp it. Or you don't have a big enough purpose yet to where you want to. Just choose a number that works for you. But make it at least 7 years from now or a decade from now. I like to go with 100. So it's 100 years from now. You open your eyes. It's your birthday. How does your body feel? Do you pop out of bed? What's your first thought? Do you say thank you? Do you say yes? You're like, oh, I love this. Thank you for another day. A century in the making, like a fine wine. I keep getting better. What do you believe at that age? What's possible at that age, at that point of life? Who do you lead? Who do you influence? How do you create value in the world? Are you sharing what you've learned? Are you giving back to the next generation? Are you able to run and jump? Are you athletic? Of course you are. How many push-ups can you do? Can you run a sprint up a hill? Can you run on the beach? What are you able to do? What do you love to do? What does your life look like? And looking back, what have you created? Take a moment just to write a few things down. Don't try to be perfect with this, but just think of someone that's older that you really admire and respect. And then go beyond that. Every generation improves upon the previous. So what's possible now will be dwarfed in the next generation, in your generation. Write it down. Okay, finish your thought, and let's go to the next step. So that's very far away, so there's not a lot of urgency. So we want to look at these in chunks, in bites, every 12 weeks. What's the milestone marker for 12 weeks from now? So by the end of January, what is different? Now I would make your progress your process. The process is your progress. What do I mean by that? So how many training sessions will you complete each week? And how many will you complete within the 12 weeks? That's a process goal. And then you add to this. You can clarify this more after you learn more and after I share more with you. But right now, training, make that a goal. And then do you want to build muscle? Do you want to burn fat? Or do you have another goal? Choose something like that. Don't choose all of them. Choose one. Get clear on it. Has your weight changed? Did it go up or down? Has your waist changed? How will you know you got there? How will you know you improved? What will you believe differently then than you would now? Belief determines behavior. Your behavior determines your results. So what is different? What is improved? What are you excited about? Write that down. It may sound something like this. I'm intending to joyfully crush this challenge. This is going to be an explosive burst of progress. It all begins with my mind. I'm intending to summon the lion, to step into my North Star every day, embody it, put myself in state, and joyfully crush the assigned training program for that day. I will fuel my body according to plan. I will be consistent in fueling. I will plan ahead. At the end of each day, I'll do a daily debrief. I'll teach you more about that later. Where I cultivate a state of gratitude. I look back upon the day and what I did well and what I can improve tomorrow. Then I design my day. What are the 3 most important actions for tomorrow? Then I give thanks. I think about my North Star, smiling, maybe even upgrading it a little bit. Add in a few lines, make it sound even better, polishing it. And then I just bask in that as I doze off. Now, we need a higher purpose for this. And this is where most people fail. Most people train because they don't feel like they're enough. Like, hey, I'm enough. I'm good enough. I'm good enough for a relationship. I'm good enough for that job. I'm good enough to start a business. I'm good enough, blah, 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 blah. When I weigh this much, I look like that, I lose this, whatever it is. We have all these weird rules. I used to have a ton of these things. I still got a couple. I kind of like them though, so I keep them. So there's nothing right or wrong. What we're doing is we have too much. We need to create some space here. Make it easy to be victorious. So what is your higher purpose? If it's about the way you look, in order for you to be enough, that's not what you want. You want something that goes beyond you. So for me, and a lot of clients that are in here that have been doing, we have people that have done hundreds of sessions, some that have done thousands of sessions at this point in the last 9-10 years. They all evolve to this one point where it's not, there's a side effect, which is your body's strong and has endurance and stamina, and you have a body that you're proud of and it never lets you down. You're more resilient. Other people around you get sick and you don't notice a thing. You're still able to give your best, and that's what it's about. The higher purpose, the reason why you train each day, the reason why you fuel your body in a beautiful way, and you nourish yourself, nourish this body and this mind, is because at any given moment, we are either in a state of love-based emotion, which is our true nature, or we are in a state of fear-based emotion. Fear-based emotion is simply a lack of love. It's not something different, it's a lack of love. So anger is right on the doorway of love. You can have a type of anger that where you're like, that's wrong, or you will not harm that person. A righteous anger that you can use to shift into something productive, which is a skill you develop. But then there's the egoic anger, which is the childish anger. And that's something we want to avoid. We want to identify it and shift it. I'll teach you how to do more of that tomorrow. You already know that. But right now, we want to make sure that you are training, you have a higher purpose for calling forth your highest and best self. So fear-based emotions are what we call the lamb. They're fearful creatures. They have to be. There's no way for them to survive. They don't have fangs or claws. They're not that fast or strong. So they hang out in the flock with their brothers and sisters, moms and dads, friends and family. And when a predator comes like a wolf, they fight to get to the center so they don't get taken. That's how they have to survive. Now, we do that when we're in our ego, when we're in fear. We go into the survival mind. There's nothing wrong with it, but there's no wolves coming. Our wolves is the lamb within us when we start getting into fear. So we need to shift out of that. So what is your higher purpose? Is your higher purpose to, hey, I want to create a body I'm proud of. that gives me energy, allows me to live greatly and without any regret. And each day I train to summon the lion, the lioness, that part of me that is unstoppable, that is love-based, that is the heart-driven leader, the part of me that always finds a way, that makes a way, that part of me that is generous, that is abundant. There is no scarcity. I either find a way or I make a way. And I know it's not just about me. I'm connecting something bigger than me, the creator of all, that we are all part of. We're all in this together, and I'm doing my part. I'm not responsible for any others. I'm responsible for showing up as my highest and best self. That's why I train. I will have no regrets when I look back upon this life. Something like that. Write down something you have. You probably have something now. We have a couple more pieces here. Take a deep breath. Stay in state. You want to be constantly checking that. You might just want to give it a little roar. I do this all the time, and I've done it so much, now it's just a thing I do, and it scares the hell out of people. Like I was on an airplane about a month ago, and I had a thought. I was like a whammy thought, and I was just like, I just growled a little bit. The person next to me was like, they kind of switched to the end of their seat. But just don't do that part. So what's next? Now, you heard me talk about the lion and the lamb, which is a metaphor for life. Now, there's a phrase you'll hear me say a lot, and it's important. You were born a lion, but we learned to become lambs. And it's so true. Without going into the details of how we develop our beliefs at a young age, what does that mean to you? Now, I ask this because I want to make sure people don't get caught up in like the macho, like I'm a lion, or I'll kick everyone's ass. That's all horseshit. That's ego, that's significance. At a soul level, we are all identical. We all come from the same place, I believe. I am not greater than anyone, and I'm not lesser than anyone. And it doesn't matter. I don't compare myself to anyone. And I learned this from the best athletes in the world. By being around them, the greatest athletes in the world have no competition. Where the good athletes, not the great ones, they compete against, they have nemesis, they have enemies. And that becomes a goal. It's like, hey, I'm going to prove I'm better than that person. But if you don't beat them, but you still gave your best, you still feel like a failure. The only thing you control is your state, your mind, and your actions, your thoughts, emotions, and actions. That's the trilogy. That is the only thing we can control. But it's a skill set. So what does that phrase mean to you? It's love and fear. That's all it is. Am I in a state of love-based emotion? Am I living as my true self, who I was made to be? Or am I getting caught up in the ego, the learned self, the fearful self? Now that part of you is not all bad. At one point, it really served you. But as you grow, you're an achiever. You learn all the time. You're growing, you're evolving, and you need to upgrade the software of the mind, which are your beliefs. But your natural state, you already have everything within you. Now it's about shedding the layers of these extra beliefs that just create limitation, because we were all on the same journey, the journey from limitation to freedom. So now the final part, looking back at your vision for when you're 100 plus years old, kicking ass, running sprints on the beach, lifting cars, you're doing all kinds of stuff. Who knows what's going to be available by then, by the way? It's only going to have more possibilities. But then what about 12 weeks from now? Now you've done these things. You kept your word. You kept your promise. You found a way to train even when it wasn't easy. Even during the holidays. You could make up any story. You could have any excuse in the book, but you still did it. What do you think now? What do you believe? Think about that. Embody that. And then remember your higher purpose for doing it. It's not that you're not enough unless you get the goal. You're already enough. And now you're honoring your body. You're honoring your mind. You're honoring those you love through your daily actions, through your state of being. Now, who is this person? Describe the main character in this story, in this movie. What is this person's dominant emotional states? Are they weak or are they strong? You know the answer. Are they heart-driven? Or are they stuck in their head all the time? Do they compare themselves to everyone else? Or do they focus on self-mastery? Are they disciplined? When they say something, does it have power? Do people believe them? Do they have integrity? Describe these things. Are they determined? What do they believe? What does this person believe? The lion. What does the lion believe when a problem arises? When something doesn't go as planned, how does the lion handle it? Write that down. That's a very important part. And keep writing. Whatever flows through you. All the answers are within you. They're just coming through. Just let them come through. Do not question them. Write it down. This is going to get better and better each time you do it. Eventually, it'll only take you a few minutes. But right now, as with anything new, just like the program and the nutrition that's coming, it's going to be, you're not going to be perfect with it. And that's part of the fun, because you can see your progress. If you were perfect at everything the first time, you'd have no interest in doing anything. That's part of the journey, is messing up and getting better. So right now, you should have at least 3 dominant emotional states of you as your best, you as the lion. You can add more later, but right now, what you have is your North Star, your guiding light. And we're going to polish it again and again each day. Remember, it is the emotion. You feel it. But when you start to think of something, you start to imagine it. And as you imagine it, a picture forms. And then you start to think of bigger and brighter and all the details of it. And as it starts to come through, it starts to move. It becomes a movie. You get excited. Then you activate a part of your brain where you notice patterns, certain patterns that will move you towards that vision. And then all of a sudden the opportunities rise because you notice them. They were always there, but now you're noticing them. And then you take action. But you have to put yourself in state. You got to connect to the vision and the purpose, your North Star, and then put yourself in state again and again and again. When you train, you summon the lion. You summon that part of you. And if you do this enough, 6 times a week, again and again and again, after 3 or 4 months of doing this, you wake up that way. And every now and then you'll get off track and you'll feel it. And you're like, no, that's not who I am. That's the lamb. I'm the lion. So this is the North Star process, my friend. I cannot emphasize enough how important this is. This is the difference between those who are happy, successful, fulfilled, that love and appreciate their body, and those that always feel like they're not enough. It begins here because we're really develop this level of faith and certainty and love is by deciding in advance what we're going to create, and then keeping that promise each day through discipline. Discipline equals freedom. And as you do it, you start to build those reps up. You reprogram the subconscious and you start to see yourself as you really are. You start to see your true self, and then that's just your default. You scraped away all that nonsense, all those lies and illusions and distortions of truth. And you are the lion, and you always were. Let's do this. You tap into the real you, but you have to retrain yourself. The way you retrain yourself is you wake your ass up in the morning and you say, I am here for a reason and a purpose. And it's bigger than my moods. It's bigger than the difficulties of the day. I am here to live like a lion, not the fear of a lamb.